Joining us now to talk about it, Vice Chairman of the House Budget Committee, Indiana Republican Congressman Todd Rokita, who is in Indianapolis. Congressman, always good to see you. Welcome.
Thanks, Eric. Good to be back.
You got three choices. Any idea from your point of view which could be approved first?
Well, in terms of what?
Well, in terms of passing Congress, what your priority is, and in terms of the president's.
Yeah. Well, we've been working on the Budget Committee since before Christmas on a reconciliation package and getting a budget done so that we could start repealing and replacing Obamacare. So that's number one in terms of what we're doing. And then working on the fiscal year 18 budget, if the Senate does one as well, we'll have a second reconciliation attempt to hopefully reform the tax code. So a lot of front-loaded work here. And of course, after that, on the Transportation Committee, the President has said he wants $1 trillion infrastructure package put together. So a lot of us feel that that has to be paid for. That's something that's very important to us. So making that a priority and getting it paid for is probably going to take up a lot of members' time for the first half of the year.
Well, that infrastructure plan is going to get a lot of resistance from many Republicans. I mean, how do you work through that? How do you sit down with the White House and potentially get something that the president is promising?
Well, it's a matter of prioritizing what needs to be done, and he has to be a partner in that, clearly. And I think he will be. You know, he's a businessman, so he understands balance sheets and so forth. And I think he's going to see whether it's our debt trajectory or an infrastructure plan that unless you're going to print more money, these things have to be paid for. And to pay for them, you need to prioritize. That is to say, if this is the most important thing, these other things out there must be less important, and it's a matter of balancing that, just like any of your viewers do, with their household budgets.
You know, Wall Street has really reacted to the president's election. But you talk about the reconciliation. I mean, do you think tax reform will happen sooner or later? You can't do that without the reconciliation in summer or fall?
Yeah, you know, it's hard to put a timeline on it, but the first order of business is repealing and replacing Obamacare. You know, Obamacare, 8 million more people on Medicaid, an entitlement program, prices up at least 22%, and so forth. It's not working. 8 million people wanting to pay the fine rather than getting on it. So we really have to work on that. And the reconciliation package, of course, allows us to get around that 60-vote threshold, right? So we can get it past the Senate with a simple majority and on President Trump's desk. And he has said heretofore that is his major priority. We can do better with health care. We're not going to leave anyone behind. We're not going to kick anyone off who has a pre-existing conditions. All these things, those parts of Obamacare or those philosophies we want to keep. And there's a better way to do it. And that's what we want to get to. That's what the president wants to get to.
And do you think that'll get done?
Could take
I mean, you just made some big promises. Do you think that will actually get done, that no one will lose their health care? That you talked about the pre-existing conditions. There has to be a program in place so that the whole thing's not scuttled.
Yeah, Eric, I think some of the confusion comes from the fact that when we say we want to repeal Obamacare and get something to the president's desk and he signs that bill, for example, that the next day or that very moment people's health care would go away. Now, that's not the case. The signing of that bill would mean that there would start a transition process. And as that transition process unfolds, new programs would come into being, assuming we can get them through the Senate and then that on the president's desk as well. So that's what I mean when I say, people don't have to be fear of having their health care ripped out from under them because there'll be a transition period and we can get to something that's more patient-centered, consumer-driven, using health savings accounts and other things to not only drive down costs, but to provide better coverage. And that's what we want as Republicans. All
right, Congressman Todd Rokita, from trade and immigration and health care. Man, you're going to be busy.
It's a big plate.
Yeah, you got a lot going on.
We're going to be busy.
You're busy. Thank you for joining us, as always, on this Sunday.